Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is Thursday. And how did you enjoy the snow that we woke up to today? We thought it was spring. April Fools, right? Oh my gosh, that's so funny. All right. What? What's that? What socks am I wearing today? Oh, you're not going to be able to handle the cuteness of my socks today. I don't know if I should show you. You're not going to be able to handle the cuteness. Okay, are you ready? I'm going to have to move my phone. Okay. There you go. They're my little peeps. My little peeps on my socks. For my little peeps. That's you guys. All right, let's make sure my phone stays where it's supposed to. It's kind of trying to wander. And shall we continue with Fablehaven today? We are at, oh my goodness, the whole book is exciting, but we're at a very exciting part. So do you remember that we are back at Fablehaven, and Seth tried to sneak out and he got caught. And so he is now going with Grandpa, and then Mendigo and Hugo and the Shadow, Tanu, and Coulter are taking them somewhere. And do you remember where they ended up? At a cave. Do you remember who is in that cave? Growlus. Do you remember who Growlus is? Growlus is one of the major demons of Fablehaven. And Grandpa said, to enter his lair would place us in his power. It would be suicide. Coulter gestured at the cave, then tapped a shadowy finger against his temple. Growlus knows something important, Seth relayed. Tanu and Coulter both nodded and motioned for them to follow. Grandpa leaned close to Seth, speaking for his ears only. Growlus is arguably the most powerful demon at Fablehaven, although he has hibernated in recent years. He would be the last being to share information with us willingly. Tanu pointed at the cave, gave a thumbs up, opened and closed his free hand like a mouth talking, and pointed to Seth. Growlus wants to speak with me? Seth asked. Grandpa, they both give me a thumbs up. This is where they meant to take me. You wait here and I'll go see. Grandpa gripped Seth's arm. I came along to see what they had in mind. If the venture held promise, I would continue, but this is folly. Mendigo and Hugo won't be able to set foot on his territory. The treaty will offer us no protection. We're turning back. Okay, Seth said, slouching against the back of the cart. Grandpa relaxed his hold on Seth's arm. Tanu, Coulter, this is too much to ask. We are going to return. Tearing free from Grandpa's grasp with a sudden lunge, Seth sprang off the cart and started running up the slope toward the mouth of the cave. If Mendigo and Hugo couldn't follow, then Grandpa couldn't stop him. Mendigo, bring Seth back here, Grandpa barked. The wooden puppet vaulted from the cart, rapidly gained on Seth, then came to an abrupt standstill about 15 paces from the road. Seth continued up the slope, but the puppet could proceed no farther. Grandpa stood up, fists on his hips. Seth Michael Sorensen, you return to this cart this instant. Seth glanced back but did not slow down. The shadowy Coulter and Tanu jogged along at either side of him. The mouth of the cave drew near. Seth, wait! Grandpa shouted anxiously from down the slope. I'm coming with you. Seth did not like the resigned tone in his voice. Seth paused, watching Grandpa trudge through the tall grass, flashlight in hand. You can come, but don't get close enough to touch me, Seth said. Grandpa glared, the muscles in his jaw tightening. The only thing more alarming than what is in that cave will be your punishment if we somehow survive. If we survive, I'll have made a good choice. Seth waited until Grandpa was about 10 paces away, then started toward the cave again. You realize we are going to our deaths, Grandpa said grimly. Who better to tell us about an evil plague than a demon, Seth countered. A tall wooden post stood outside the cave. Rusted iron shackles dangled from the top. Evidently, victims had once been chained there. The thought made Seth shiver. The shadows of Tanu and Coulter did not proceed beyond the post. Seth waved for them to follow. They shook their heads and motioned forward. The mouth of the cave was large enough to accommodate a school bus. As Seth tromped inside, he realized that worrying about Grandpa stopping him from saving Fablehaven had partly distracted him from properly thinking through whether he should be stopping himself. He hoped that Tanu and Coulter were not enslaved to the will of this demon. The smooth dirt walls and floor gave Seth the impression that the cave had not formed naturally. It was an excavation. As he continued forward, the cave curved twice and then widened into a single stuffy room with a domed ceiling, through which protruded a few twisted roots. Rotten, broken furniture mingled with disorderly piles of pale bones. A huge, sagging table bore numerous moldy books and the waxy puddles of melted candles. Ruptured barrels were heaped haphazardly against one wall, leaking rancid contents. Amid a jumble of crushed crates, Seth noticed a glint of jewels. Against the far curving wall of the room, cobwebs veiled a huge hunched shape. The lumpy figure sat on the floor, back to the dirt wall, slumped to one side. Seth glanced over his shoulder at Grandpa. He stood motionless except for the quivering hand clutching the flashlight. "Shine the light on the thing in the corner," Seth said. The beam was currently aimed at the cluttered table. Grandpa offered no response. He did not move. And then a voice spoke, deeper than any voice Seth had ever imagined, slow and labored as if on the brink of death. "You do not fear me?" Seth squinted at the web-shrouded shape in the corner. "Of course I do," he said, stepping closer, "but my friends said you wanted to speak with me." The figure stirred, making the cobwebs ripple and dust plume into the air. "You do not feel fear as you did in the grove?" The speaker sounded sad and tired. "With the Revenant? How do you know about that? I don't feel fear like I did there. The fear was uncontrollable." The figure shifted again. One of the largest sheets of cobwebs tore, billowing lazily. The rumbling voice gained a little strength. "Your grandsire is in the grip of such fear now. Take his light and come closer." Seth walked over to Grandpa, who had yet to move. Seth poked him gently in the ribs, but got only a slight twitch as a reaction. Why was Grandpa so incapacitated? Was Grawless directing magic specifically at him? A devious part of Seth's mind wished that Grandpa would remain like this so he wouldn't get in trouble if they made it out alive. Seth yanked the flashlight from his grasp. "Will Grandpa be all right?" Seth asked. "He will." "You're Grawless?" "I am. Come closer." Picking his way through the decaying debris, Seth drew nearer to the demon. With one quick, gnarled hand, the demon was peeling away cobwebs. Dust fumed up from his clothes. Gagging, Seth covered his nose and mouth against the putrid stench. Smells like flowers, or freshly baked bread, or rain. Yeah. Although the demon was sitting on the floor and hunched to one side, Seth came no higher than his bloated shoulder. Seth took an involuntary step back when the flashlight illuminated the demon's face. His skin was like the head of a turkey, red and folded and droopy, as if horribly infected. He was bald, and he had no visible ears. A pair of curled ram horns projected from the sides of his broad skull, and a milky film clouded his cold black eyes. "Would you believe I was once one of the 6 most feared and respected demons in the world?" he asked, his breathing labored. His entire body rocked with the effort of each wheezing inhalation. "Sure," Seth said. The demon shook his saggy head, folds of red flesh swaying. "Do not patronize me." "I'm not," said Seth. "I believe you." Grawless coughed. Webs flapped and dust swirled. "Nothing has caught my interest in hundreds of years," he growled wearily. He closed his eyes. His breathing slowed and his voice became steadier. "I came to this pitiful zoo to die, Seth. But dying comes slowly for my kind. So very slowly. Hunger cannot conquer me. Disease is no match. I slumber, but I do not rest." "Why did you come here to die?" Seth asked. "To embrace my fate. I have known true greatness, Seth. To fall from greatness, from the dizziest heights to the deepest depths, knowing one might have prevented it, certain one will never reclaim what one has lost, cripples the will. Life holds no more meaning than one chooses to impose, and I quit pretending long ago." "I'm sorry," Seth said. You have a big spider on your arm." "No matter," the demon wheezed. "I did not summon you here to pity my condition. As dormant as I have become, I cannot submerge all my gifts. Without conscious effort, without tools or spells, this preserve is open to my scrutiny, all save a few select locations. I dread the futile monotony of all that is out there and endeavor to ignore it, to turn inward. And even so, I cannot help perceiving much that transpires. Nothing has intrigued me until you. Growlus opened his filmy eyes. Me? Your courage in the grove surprised me. Surprise is a reaction I had all but forgotten. I have seen enough that I always know what to expect. I assess the odds of various outcomes, and my predictions are never thwarted. Before you were finished confronting the Revenant, the potion failed. I'm going to read that one more time. This is a very important part of the book, guys. Before you were finished confronting the Revenant, the potion failed. I saw the artificial bravado leave you. Your demise was certain. Yet, despite my certainty, you removed the nail. Had you been full grown, a seasoned hero of legendary renown, well trained, armed with charms and talismans, I would have been deeply impressed. But for a mere boy to perform such a feat, I was truly surprised. Seth was unsure what to say. He watched the demon and waited. Growlus leaned forward. You wonder why I brought you here. To find out what I taste like, Seth said. The demon regarded him morosely. I brought you here to thank you for my first surprise in centuries. You're welcome, Seth said. The demon shook his head slightly, or had only his eyes moved. I intend to thank you by bestowing what you currently need. Knowledge. It will probably not save you, but who can say? Perhaps you will amaze me again. Based on your performance in the grove, it might be poor judgment to consider you incapable of anything. Sit down. Seth squatted on a corroded, overturned bookcase. The Revenant was nothing without the nail, Growlus rasped, a feeble being fortified by a talisman of tremendous dark power. Your friends should have striven more earnestly to recover it. Tanu searched for it for hours, Seth said. He finally decided it must have been destroyed when I pulled it out. A talisman of such potency is not easily unmade. By the time your friend started looking, he was too late. What happened to it? Seth said. First, consider what happened to you. Why do you suppose that only you can discern the shades of your friends? Did the nail do that to me? Seth asked. Growlus leaned back and closed his eyes, a pained expression flashing across his revolting features, as if he were coping with a sudden surge of agony. After a moment, he spoke, dark eyes still squeezed shut. The talisman left its mark on you. Be glad you did not touch the nail with your flesh, or it would have taken possession of you. You have been enabled to see certain dark properties that are invisible to most eyes, and you have acquired an immunity to magical fear. Really? My presence inspires a paralyzing horror in humans, similar to the aura that surrounded the Revenant. Exuding terror is part of my nature. Look to your grandsire if you harbor any doubt. Seth stood up, shaking his arms and flexing his fingers. I really don't feel scared. I mean, I'm worried that you might be tricking me and that you might kill me and Grandpa, but I don't feel petrified like with the Revenant. This sight you have been endowed with might help you locate the source of the magic transforming the creatures of Fablehaven, Growlus said. Your darkened friends remain reliable. For such fragile creatures, humans sometimes have surprising strengths. One is self-possession. The same magic that has altered the creatures of Fablehaven has failed to overthrow the minds of Coulter and Tanagatoa. Good to know, Seth said. Growlus paused, eyes still shut, his breathing loud. Would you care for my insights on how the current trouble at Fablehaven originated? Did it have something to do with the prisoner the Sphinx released? Seth asked. Growlus opened his eyes. Very good. Do you happen to know the identity of the captive? So the Sphinx really is a traitor? Seth exclaimed. No, none of us know who the prisoner was. Do you? Growlus licked his lips, his tongue a bruised color and marked by sores. His presence was unmistakable. Although most have not been able to sense his true identity, he was Navarog, the demon prince, lord of the dragons. The prisoner was a dragon? Seth asked. The foremost of all dark dragons, said Growlus. He looked human-sized, said Seth. He was in disguise, naturally. Many dragons can assume a human form when it suits them. Navarog did not revert to his true shape while on this property. His business at Fablehaven was of a stealthier nature. Seth sat back down on the corroded bookcase. You say was. Did he leave? He left Fablehaven on the same day the Sphinx set him free, Growlus said. He was never formally admitted to the preserve, and so the walls could not hold him. But he did not depart until after performing some mischief. First, he went to the grove and retrieved the nail. The dark talisman had already burrowed deep into the ground, which is why Tonagatoa missed it, but it surfaced when summoned. Then Navarog took the nail to Curaçao. The other demon? Seth said. There are a few places my senses cannot penetrate at Fablehaven. One is the house and yard where you live with your grandparents. Another is the mansion that was once the residence of the caretaker. And a third is the tiny domain ruled by Curaçao. I cannot say precisely what Navarog did with the nail, but he had it when he entered Curaçao's domain, and when he left, the talisman was no longer in his possession. After delivering the nail, Navarog fled the preserve. Where did he go from here? Seth asked. Ever since I tied myself to this preserve, my sight does not carry beyond the boundaries, Growlus explained. I have no guess where a dragon as mighty as Navarog might have gone. So, to save Fablehaven, I have to stop Curaçao, Seth said. It would be intriguing to watch how you fared against him, Growlus mused with a glint in his eye. Something about the stare convinced Seth that the demon was somehow toying with him. Do not ask me why Navarog went to Curaçao. If Curaçao has accomplished great deeds, I have not heard of them. He has wrought devastation on occasion, but lacks the faculties of a master strategist. There was a time when Navarog would have brought the talisman straight to me. Do you just want to use me to trip up a rival? Seth asked. Rival, Growlus rumbled, almost chuckling. I long ago ceased measuring myself against others. How do I stop Curaçao? Seth asked. Curaçao is more shadow than substance. To interact with the material world, he binds himself to a host. In return for a borrowed physical form, he imbues the host with power. Depending on whom Curaçao symbiotically unites with, the results can be impressive. Then he's not working alone, Seth said. In my long years, I have never seen darkness transform beings as infectiously as is happening on this preserve. I do not know how it is being accomplished. By binding oath, Curaçao cannot go beyond the limits of his domain here at Fablehaven. He must have partnered with a powerful entity, and the nail must be amplifying his abilities. Would the nail do different things for Curaçao than it did for the Revenant? Seth asked. Undoubtedly, Growlus agreed. The nail is a reservoir of dark power. Without it, the Revenant would not have been very intimidating. With it, he is among the most dangerous and powerful creatures at Fablehaven. Curaçao was formidable without the nail. With the talisman, his abilities may have become sufficiently augmented to explain this virulent darkness. You're a demon, right? Seth said dubiously. No offense, but shouldn't you be happy about this plague? Growlus coughed, moribund body heaving. The pendulum swings back and forth between light and darkness. I lost interest long ago. What rekindled my interest was you, Seth. I am curious to see how you fare against this threat. I'll do my best, Seth said. What else can you tell me? You must figure out the rest with the help of your friends, Growlus said. You do not have much time. The infectious darkness is spreading inexorably. There are only 2 safe refuges on this preserve, and even they cannot hold out indefinitely. I cannot see the shrine of the Fairy Queen. It repels darkness. Many of the creatures of light have sought sanctuary around her pond, and the centaurs, among others, have withdrawn to protected ground in a far corner of the preserve, within a ring of stones that will not admit darkness. Those will be the last places to fall. And the house, Seth added. If you say so, Growlus said. Now I must rest. Take your grandfather and go. This is another triumph you can add to your list. Few mortals have entered my presence and lived to tell the tale. One more thing, Seth asked. How did Coulter and Tanu know I could trust you? Coulter was exploring, searching for the cause of the plague. He came to me. In his current state, though, I can see and hear him clearly. I cannot harm him. I told him that I had information to share with you, and convinced him that I was a sincere admirer. Later, I persuaded Tanagatoa as well. Fortunately for you, I was telling the truth. Go and rescue this wretched, ridiculous zoo, if you dare. Growlus closed his eyes. His mushy, crinkled face drooped and then slumped forward as if he had lapsed into unconsciousness. Letting the flashlight dangle from a cord around his wrist, Seth returned to Grandpa and grabbed him under his arms. The contact seemed to stir Grandpa out of his trance, and Seth helped him walk out of the cave. Coulter and Tanu were waiting outside. Once they were back in the moonlight, Grandpa flinched wildly, flailing his arms, and Seth released him. We're outside, Grandpa gasped. Growlus let us go, Seth said. Did you catch any of what he told us? Bits and pieces, Grandpa said, brow knitted. It was hard to focus. How did you withstand the fear? The cold? Actually, it was kind of stuffy in there, Seth said. I guess I'm immune to magical fear. Something to do with surviving the Revenant? We need to have a long talk, he said. Grandpa bent over and brushed off his pants. You realize we can't trust what Growlus told you. I know, said Seth, but we need to consider it. I'm pretty sure he told me the truth. If he meant us harm, all he needed to do was sit back and watch us fail. At least this gives us some leads to pursue. Grandpa nodded, walking toward Hugo in the cart. First things first, let's hurry home. And that's all we're reading today. Oh my gosh, we learned a lot of important information in that part of the story. So don't forget it, and we will see you next time, guys. Bye!